Hi, everyone. My name is Dinah, and this is my son Nathaniel. And I thought, in celebration of Autism Awareness Month, I thought we would do a live to kind of give you um, just my son's journey. He's 21 now, and some of the things that go through our minds as parents, and maybe get a good idea of what goes through their mind um, when they turn that age. So he's 21 now, but the journey for us has really been an up and down. And when I say that, it's because the realization of having a child that's going to be 18, is very trying on us as parents. And we get all kinds of questions and thoughts about, oh my gosh, it's 18, have I given them enough life skills? Have I, prepared them for what happens during that time? And we know that transitional stage. And I know a lot of um, my friends in the group, like Lorianda and Pam and Nita herself and Linda and Richard, went through this phase of their children reaching that age too. So for us, it was, I'm an older mom, so longevity played a big factor for a lot of the things that I made decisions about for him because, you know, longevity is one of the hardest things we face and our biggest fear. So, again, wondering if I gave my son enough life skills to prepare him for the event that of the possibility of me not being around um, made me determine, like right now, I have power of attorney. And I did this because Nathaniel is high functioning. He's a level one. So he has capabilities um, to make some decisions, but I still need to monitor those decisions and talk him like through the whole scenario. And up until this point, he's been receptive because we had to talk about changing from having a pediatrician to a regular general physician. The psychiatrist and his therapist, taking him out of the pediatrician therapy and stuff and putting him into what is considered more mainstream therapy. So he had to learn to, talk to these people, build another relationship with them to be able to feel secure when he talks to them. Right, Nathaniel?
Yeah.
Like being honest. Like you can be honest with your pediatrician during that time because you've had years to, talk to them. Now you have a whole new set of doctors that you don't know how honest you can be. That they, the feeling of being judged is always there. But, again, Nathaniel just started he went and got his driver's license and he's driving now. So, I still have to talk to him about safety and all these things. And he knows, and he'll say, I know, mom, but, it's not so much him that I worry about as, him being a good, defensive driver. So just some things that, for him is a challenge. Um, once 18. And here's the thing for 18, for getting new um, documents like an ID, even a passport and stuff. If your child can talk, if they can write, if they can read, then even though you have a power of attorney, they have to go in on their own. So, I'm standing outside and I'm all nervous. You know, is he going to answer the questions right? Just things like that. But you have to really trust your child to hope that they're going to give the right information um, to, whoever they needs it, right? So, I had to walk him through it, have him discuss with me, like, okay, what if they ask you this? What if they ask you that? And sometimes you'll say, Mom, I got this. But, being a parent who's always controlling, I want to say, not really controlling, but is always there trying to give him advice, talk him through things. Um, I think sometimes he thinks that I can be a little overbearing. Is that right?
A little bit, not gonna lie, a little bit.
My son's very honest. That's part of his thing. But I think I developed a good enough relationship with him that he can be as honest as possible, and that
I try to
included,
be.
right? That's including giving him the ability to start his own account. Now Nathaniel is into starting his own business. Um, Actually, he started that when he was younger. I think COVID kind of played a big factor on that,
Yeah,
with coin collecting and comic books and just things like that. And he ventured out. My goal, and I think sometimes we build the concept of where, what we have as expectations for our kids who are able to do this. Now, this is for more high functioning, but it's not to say that just because a child doesn't isn't verbal, that they're not able to do these things, because they can. But I wanted to kind of show everyone that there's great possibilities when it comes to our kids, that they're able to do the things that impossible that we think that they're not capable of doing, and showing us that they can soar. And no matter what they do, whether it's art or just pretending, I mean, there's always going to be something that they are good at. And it can just be counting. I mean, there's simple things, but the more you encourage them to go beyond their safety net and encourage them to at least try it. Just try it once. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. But that has always been our approach with Nathaniel. What do you think?
pretty much. Yeah, you just summed it up. So when it comes down to it, basically we have to learn. From a young age, I always knew basically that I was different, and not in a bad way. Just like even with like simple things with like time or everything like that, it was just very easy or at sometimes very hard to do. And it can be a lot of times complicated, because we have to get up and do things, and a lot of times we say a lot of things or we write stuff down, but it's the difference of actually doing it and everything like that. Sure, you can have a plan set up and everyone tell you exactly what to do and do it, and a lot of the times you just have to do it and everything like that. But there are times where we just get scared, and really all we need is the only thing that can help us in that way is information. So
And a
learning,
push.
yeah. So learning for me has been like I always learn. So it's like I always take any instructions, any lessons to heart, because like, hey, I'm not gonna learn that again if anything. You know what I mean? Something we all have to learn. Why not just listen? And a lot of times when growing up as well, yeah, I think I acted a little bit older in some aspects, but also a lot childish too. I always thought of it as like two people almost, one that's childish and everything like that, and the other one that's logical. And so it's always just a battle of those two, like in situations. I want to have a sometimes I tick or something like that, and I just like I stutter, or like I move like involuntary jerk movements, and to mine it's just common really, and I don't even notice it until someone really says something, and I was like, okay. So a lot of the times it's learning those right moments of when and when not to, and the information that's given to you throughout life, it really does benefit. So yeah, pretty much any information you get, just learn. In my
So,
case,
so how did you feel when you turned 18? It was a plateau for you, and
it
then
was a lot of mixed things. To be honest, when I turned 18 on the day, I really didn't feel any different. I know, like, you always see the movies or just you go along life and you think, like, hey, when you turn 18, everything's up or everything's going down or everything's in the middle, everything like that. And for me, yeah, everything was in the middle. I really didn't feel any difference. Um, but in the long run, over like the course of like, days, weeks, months, and everything like that, I realized that it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be something you learn, something that you gain. And when I turned 18, heck, you can go to, I remember I went to the gas station and I got like lottery tickets essentially when I turned 18. And that was because, like, hey, is this something I could do that I couldn't do before? And it was like, this is, I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean like it, I keep doing it or anything like that, something like that. It's just like something fun that's like I never was able to do. And then when I turned 21, I mean, there's a lot of things that opened up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm basically an adult essentially, and I have to come to well, basically, it's not come to terms, but it's like learning that you're an adult and not a child, or well, not even at that aspect either. It's more of like you have to learn with the people that you're with, and to have that information with me, will always be beneficial in my life. You know what I mean? So I can act always different ways depending on the situation, and that I try to be a limelight. You know what I mean? I try to be good in the situation.
So part of what you're saying is that in when you meet people who, can either sway you in one way or the other, that has always been my biggest fear.
Right.
That, someone's going to come along and say, "Hey, let's do this," and you have a difficult time being able to say no because you're a people pleaser.
Right.
So, those are a lot of traits.
When to say no.
Right, when to say no because you don't recognize when, you know, when somebody is.
When you can't do it. When it's something that you want to, but you just can't.
Right, curiosity, because, they still have curiosity.
Let's see, is there a chat thing right here?
Yeah, but if you do that. So he still has a lot of curiosity, and I think a lot of it is based on, he has Nathaniel as an uncle to 5 other,
Yeah.
I will say kids. They're not kids because two of them
Two of them are actual
well,
kids.
actually,
The other
three.
ones I grew up, since birth. So it's basically I was basically the oldest. So like it's kind of weird when you're the oldest yet yeah, it's just weird. I was just the oldest.
He has nephews that are his same age, but are not autistic, may have some learning difficulties, but no, not a diagnosis for autism that they get more involved in. And so, for them to say, hey, hey, Nathaniel, why don't you come do this? Why don't we, like the whole drinking and smoking and all these things. And these are the things that I try to really discourage him from doing because I don't promote it. But that's not to say that I can't, you know, I have to be able to trust him enough to say no. But then I say, well, my biggest thing with him is to say, okay, Nathaniel, you're on medication, so you shouldn't be doing these things.
Right.
Is part of the curiosity of, can I try it because I'm 21 now? Because everybody around me, are like, hey, you're 21, let's go to the bar, let's go do these things. And these would really be new things for Nathaniel to experience. So some things I don't want him to experience. And there are some things that I'll say, well, like the whole dating thing, he's not dating right now. I can't say that he hasn't dated, but it's nothing serious. How do I feel about those things? I have to look at Nathaniel and say, are you able to carry a relationship and be responsible? And we talk about sex and we talk about respect for women and we talk about all these things, but it's different when you're not there. You have to rely on them to be able to. And this is all part of like the life skill.
What was the comment? Let's see the comments. I was in the same position, oldest of the 3, 2 of us still living. My brother, who was in a math professor,
So,
also.
A lot of these that these are things that you would tell your neurotypical child because it's a part of life. And then you have to think, okay, my son or any child, these are the things that I would tell him exactly whether he's neurotypical or autistic because they're going to be in a position of having to make some really hard decisions and hopefully you give them enough reasons why. That's not to say that they're not going to make a decision right and wrong, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that that's not the case. But
I would never make any bad decisions. Most of my decisions are just based off of logic and everything like that. So if anything, I always try to make the best decisions in a situation. So if anything, I always think of family first. I always think of like, because when you go outside and everything like that, we live in basically Chicago. You know what I mean? A lot of things can happen. A lot of things. I mean, nights are not fun. You know what I mean? Going out. So,
So why put yourself in that position, right?
right. Why put yourself in that position too? But like at the same time, if you're outside and everything like that, if you want to experience life. It's something that, you know, no matter what your mom or dad or anyone says, when you get up to that age, I mean, if you know what you're doing, if you can understand what you're doing, and if you can use that information that you already know, the more experience you have in life will always be beneficial. So that's basically, you know, when it comes down to, sometimes it's just life experiences that we have to learn, and sometimes you can't explain it to people, and sometimes it has to be learned naturally. You can brace it for as long as you want, but it's at some point going to happen. And if you coach too much, they get an over, you know, they feel like they would know, you know what I mean, when they shouldn't. It's something that has to be learned and not, you know, expressively taught. Yeah, you can brace for it, but it's not always, you know, it's a hit or miss. For me, in any case, I learned from like any person. I learned from any mistakes that, you know, I make
Others make.
mistakes, others mistakes. Like everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. It's the matter of fact of learning the mistake and not doing it again. So,
Right.
or if you do, you fail. You know, what's the saying? You failed hard, hard failed better, or something. So essentially, you learn from the mistakes you make.
So I always try to get Nathaniel busy in activities. And he, believe me, he has enough obsessions to get himself involved in his own activities. So when he started his little business, of course, I'm his biggest supporter. And I thought, well, he's not out there on the streets. He's not trying to get in trouble. He's, staying at home. And so for me, that was opportunity for growth. And so he started his own little business, started to get online, looked at, he's a fact finder. So Nathaniel's the type of
Well,
kid that,
to be honest, it's not really a small business. It's a lot bigger. Well, okay. So essentially, what I do is essentially I'm a data collector. Essentially go to flea markets, estate sales, and, you know, any events that I go to, and I'm very nosy with information and everything like that. So in the end, I use that information to help. So when it comes when it comes down to like my job, I am a collector. I go to flea, like I said before, you know, all the other stuff. So I go to flea markets and I go to events too, and I also vend at those events. So it's pretty cool because you could find a lot of stuff, and a lot of the times people don't exactly know what they're selling their items at. I mean, people sell their items all the time, and people can, you know, price however they want. But if it's a market item, let's say it's like a rare item and the person doesn't know it, you know what I mean? If they sell it to you, I mean, yeah, you could buy it forever, you know, you could buy it and, you know, sell it. So my business essentially started off of, you know, collectible coins and everything like that. You know, US. I usually go between like 1900s and everything like that. And then after a while, I started collecting into comics, Pokemon. Pokemon was a really big one, especially when in COVID and everything like that, I was reading in like stocks and everything like that. So I, at a very young age, started investing in items that were more physical, because stocks can go up and down, but a physical item is literally like a stock, because, you know, you can just look at it and it goes up and down. And when it's predictable, like as a comic book or as a coin or as Pokemon or any basically you know, trading card game, you can, it has a stock that you can track, and if it goes up, you simply just, you know, sell it. But if it goes down, you simply just sell it as well, because, you know, but it's just making more profit over what you bought. As long as you make more than what you paid for, I mean, it's always good, because like people don't really understand. Well, people know what they sell it for, but sometimes they can get it for more, and sometimes the market that they set is not the right market.
so case in point, Nathaniel, when he has a fact, when he has a subject that he loves, this is what happens. He will tell you everything about it. And that's what I love about him. But he doesn't realize that some people just may not be interested in the story. So I have to kind of help him through.
Which is why I also embellish the story too, because a lot of the finds that I find are pretty cool. Like the coolest thing I found was a 1933 fortune teller that survived World War II. So I mean, like I recover a lot of, like, you know, in terms of like artifacts. I mean, it's antique and everything like that, and you're not going to find something. A lot of the items I find, it's rare. You can't find the items, just from like a store or something like that. You have to really go looking and knowing the item, what it is. Like, for example, even like, like fuses and everything like that. There are different types of fuses that go to different items, and some fuses are older than others, and some fuses are more expensive than others. It's just knowing which one is which. Um, so in my case, knowing that information will always help because it's the difference between a non-payday to a big payday. Like for example, even like selling a book or something like that. Um, my sister basically found this book that I originally thought was around 100, and then we come to find out that it's a first edition and it's like 250. And when it comes to like specific books. I mean, if you guys want to see it, my channel is Hammered Treasure and everything like that. I specialize in collectible restorations and everything like that. So if you're interested in like stuff that I do, definitely check out like Hammered Treasure because it's a lot of items that I find and everything like that. So if you're interested, 100%. But when it comes to like specific items, it's just finding the collectors for them because there's specific markets for everything.
So
let me see what the chat said.
So part of it is encouraging them to
their articulation's on point. Amazing.
To do what they want to do, within means. And I know that I've said this a lot of times, when I'm complaining, sort of,
logistics and everything like that. So
that obsessions can become a larger scenario. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, then you got too many things. I feel like you're becoming a hoarder, like you've taken over the basement. Like now
true, but if the items that are around the area are more than like $200 per item, and I mean, it's all based on like one's perception. She might think of them as like just regular items or something like that, but like each one has a price tag. Like some of the items that I have are over like $2,000. Like that fortune teller, for example, was like more than like 7,000. And like, some of the cards that I have are graded, which, goes triple the amount of they like normally do. A lot of them are PSA 9 and 10. So there's a lot of items that I invest in that are way more than just like an average $1 or $5. I mean, I do have a lot of, cards that are like between like that. And I do have a lot of items, which is why I always market it in different ways. So I always, make sure that, different inventories go to different markets. So it's more or less like, finding what each item is worth.
So what is happening is giving you the ability to see like someone that is high functioning, that understands things, that can do things, but the social, emotional, items or traits that come with it is how we have to help them. Because of course, when you're having, like Nathaniel can have a dialogue with someone, can carry on a conversation, but how much information that he goes on about, I have to taper him down and say, maybe that person wasn't really interested in all that information, just giving them highlights or something so that he understands, because he really doesn't understand like facial expressions, like when someone is just like, oh, okay man, like I it's nice or whatever. So we still help him do those things, because unfortunately, those are going to be the social elements that he's going to be facing all the time. And that's where, like life skills and things like that come into play. So for Nathaniel, I made sure like he can do his own laundry if he needed to. He can mildly have, a meal on his own, like, do a grilled cheese, or you can make yourself a sandwich, or, he's not going to starve. Obviously, he doesn't look like he's starving, but in the event, even shopping, like I'll give him a list. And now that he's, driving, since driving Miss Daisy is what it is, so I can send him to the store with the grocery list, with money, or send money on his out, and then have him do some shopping for us. So he's
just listening to Nathaniel explain. His excitement makes it super interesting. Makes you want to learn more. Love it.
Giving him the experience of, if he had to do this on his own, these are the things that he would have to learn. And my goal was to make sure that he was set up. So with his little business, he's earning his own money. I don't have him on Social Security yet for disability.
Yes. So yeah, when it comes to that, another thing that is like something that I can't do is a lot of physical things, and the reason why is because like basically I have a spinal deformity in my back, and I have essentially have a bad back. And that paired with autism too as well. When it first started, it was very painful. So it's just like not understanding is something that can be always scary for like people who have autism, and then they can't, they're in some sort of like physical, pain, and they don't understand it, because like it can be very sort of traumatic in that scenario and everything. So a lot of times, especially in the medical industry and everything like that, I mean, I wouldn't categorize it as bad, because they always look at the charts, they always sort of know like what you have and everything like that. But when they see, I don't know, when they see the word autism on it, or like when they specifically diagnose, they sometimes can see that over like the physical. I'm not saying that's bad, you know what I mean? They should always know full information and everything like that. But in terms of like, when I was in like a hospital with my back, they really didn't like, they initially thought it was, chalked up to like, me not understanding, when in actual fact I popped 3 discs in my back. So it's like, um
So what he's trying to say is that he didn't feel like they believed him, and he was in physical pain, and trying to explain all those was hard to put into words for him because he was in pain. So, they would think, okay, like, that chart of 0 to 10, and he'd say, well, I'm like at 10 and over.
Yeah, because when they actually did the tests and everything like that, what was it? It's like a spinal tap with like a giant needle in the back. It turned out that my pressures were, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I remember them saying it was very high, and that like afterwards they had to take me for like multiple imaging, and I remember they had a whole team there, because they was like, they didn't understand how I could have a spinal issue at the age of basically 16. But apparently it's just been something that, it's always been an underlying thing since birth.
Right, an undetected deformity. So, um, part of the problem is, and why it's important that I got the power of attorney, but there are other ways like guardianship or whatever, have the ability to be in the doctor's office when he gets checked out. Because once they see autism, they just kind of overlook a lot of things and just feel like they're embellishing, like,
Right.
it's your imagination. Like, they want to use the diagnosis of autism to cover up,
Cloud the other effects.
to be able to actually look at the characteristics of why he's in pain. So it was important that I maintained that and got that at that age for him. So
Because it
that,
saves you a lot of trouble in the end.
right.
It really does, because like for essentially I was there for a week, and for like the first like 2-3 days, they really didn't they didn't, not they didn't know, it's just like getting processed through it was longer than what it needed, and to get relief it took longer than what it needed. And with spinal pain, basically they said it was possibly one of the worst pains you could possibly feel next to childbirth, because it's the nerve itself that's damaged. So when it came down to it, I had to get corrective surgery on my back. I had to get like, they had to take bone out. And
that was a fear for him too. Part of it is when they started doing the spinal taps, they wanted to do it without having to put him under. And so I had to really fight for that, because of the fact is that, their tolerance for pain. And because some, our kids don't really are capable of expressing, in words, the pain levels or what they're feeling, and things like that. That if you don't have an advocate with them, if you don't have the ability to be in the room and talk to the doctors, then they get overlooked, and they use that autism diagnosis just to not bother with it. So that was important with the power of attorney, that I was able to do that.
Because another thing that was on top of it too, like as I was going through it, because they said it was always something that I've had in my back since birth and everything. So I always had back pain. Like it was always something that I thought was normal. Like when people, it's not like they treated it as if like I was, crazy. You know what I mean? Not crazy, but it's like weird. And because of that, I thought that pain was normal to have. And over time, I very quickly realized, when it finally happened, because really all I needed to do was shovel snow in like winter, and that bending motion popped 3 discs in my back. So it was bad because like for the first time of my life, like it got worse. And I kept on saying that it was in that area. I kept on saying that it was just pain. All I felt was pain. And like, it was the worst pain you can possibly imagine. And it is, because it's literally like next to childbirth, because it's 3 discs that are pushing against the nerves. So living through that and experiencing that, it really changes a person, especially in like long term, chronic pain and everything like that. So I feel like I'm very lucky with how I turned out in terms of like, the decision making I make, because I think, definitely like having some event to basically shake me out of it helped. Like a life experience will always help, even though that, this was definitely a bad life experience, because, feeling pain, getting surgery, learning how to rewalk, being in a wheelchair and everything like that. So
even through school. So he had
high school.
He had friends who were budding up with him, so that he can be able to get to his classes, because he was wheelchair bound for a while, and then
Good, like 6 months.
So with his IEP, we were able to, well, I should say that with an IEP that was not academic. So Nathaniel fared well in school. So what we needed was to modify his IEP, because he almost lost the IEP because of academics. And so we were able to, once he was originally diagnosed with Asperger's, and then a year later they changed it to autism, so he's a level 1 and was able to get a lot more services. And we were able to then change his IEP so that the primary was going to be emotional, and behavioral. So that gave him the ability to have some of his classes switched to smaller classes so that he wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. It's still a gen ed, but it was just in a smaller group setting, which helped him, because having too many people in the classroom was really distracting him.
Well,
and
it's not that it was distracting. It's just like, really, I would actually honestly prefer a bigger class and everything like that. It's really ultimately dependent on like, I definitely think it would have been better had I been in a bigger class, to be honest. But at the same time, like, some things were faster than others, and to keep up, when it's a smaller setting, it's a lot easier for the teacher to like really focus on one person rather than a giant room of 30 that, can like, because you have to keep track of essentially 30 individuals. So, I mean, personally, I would have wanted a bigger room, but like logically wise, I understand why they would need to put me in like a smaller setting. What was that chat thing? Let's see. Yes, it's hard for them to explain it. They know what it is, but may not. I can't explain.
That is very
Sounds
true.
as though you did not have a particularly complete apathis when it suffered from this some years back.
Well, and Charles, that's a good point, because remember that when they're kids, they go to a primary physician or pediatrician, and they're not really specialists in that aspect. And when Nathaniel was having some issues, put it back on the thing. So when Nathaniel was having some issues, part of the problem was that they looked at his age. They said he's too young to have, spine issues. And they looked at his weight and said, well, if he lost weight, that would help him. And,
right.
So
it's very much a double-edged sword, because like,
right.
The more I did, the more damage I was actually doing to myself. And because they didn't look at it, they didn't understand, or they didn't want to like past the the original diagnosis of like I might be just
autism. So again,
it took a long time for them to actually see it, and it was a big sort of oopsie on their part, to be honest with you, because I remember literally seeing like a whole team, like I think 3 or 4 people that were like, they're not, because when they originally diagnosed it, can I say it actually? What did I actually have? I have spinal stenosis. I have multi-level spinal stenosis, lower lumbar. So the problem is that they didn't understand or know how I got it. Nevertheless, like how it even like, got to that point. And basically it was a lack of care. And from what they said, it says it most likely developed at the age of like 5 to 7, which progressed over the course of my life until it got to that one point. To the point where like literally just bending to shovel snow caused 3 discs to dislocate and caused me immense pain.
Right. So we did see an orthopedic doctor, and we did say, but because the autism diagnosis plus his age,
We went to
just
multiple doctors actually.
they
We
were
went to another
just
person
not,
too.
understanding like how this could even be possible. And then Annie would say, "Mom, I feel like my back is collapsing," and I'm like, okay, he when he talks, it was always like,
It's bad, but at the time it was bad.
right,
Like,
but
and it would
every
progressively
other
get worse, and to the point where I was collapsed in bed, and every time I tried getting up, literally the only thing I felt was pain. Like, think of the sense like like I use it very lightly when it comes to pain. Like, you think of like a simple prick of a finger or a burn, right? But think of like getting, okay, let's say you're in a construction area and you hit you hit your finger with the hammer, right? It's just one hit and then it dulls or goes away. This pain would stay in that direct area, like if you were immediately hit by that hammer and stayed.
right. Well, and a big part of that was the spinal stenosis. He had 3 herniated discs, so they were constantly on his pinching his nerves, so he was getting sciatica on both legs. But besides that, on top of all that, it was how are we going to deal with things like diabetes, and how are we going to deal with now he has glaucoma.
The after effects of having that surgery were very counteractive to it helped pain wise, but it counteracted total health. I understand that I have to lose weight, and I understand that there's a lot of pathways that I have to do to get there. And when it comes down to it, I have a long pathway to get healthy, to get fully healthy. And that's my major goal in the end, is to get fully healthy, to be able to become financially like stable, to be able to go out and do what I want, because there's a lot of things I want to do. And I know logistic wise, you have to like make a plan for it and everything like that. But I think plan wise, I think I got all the information that I need. I still will need more information, but it's like goal wise, I think I'm set. You know what I mean? I have a drive to do what I want to do. And the learning of, the experiences of life that was given to me, even though, sometimes I think like, some things I think would have been like differently, it still helped me regardless in the end. What was that, chat right there? Let's see, comments. That is a big worry for us parents with kids on the spectrum. Some cannot explain. For having difficulty explaining their pain, but nothing worse than being able to explain and being degraded.
The reason why I kind of went along with some of these obsessions is because he was having so many other physical issues that I needed him to keep him focused, to still give him drive, to kind of get his mind off of everything else that was happening. So when they do that, then the world seems so much bigger. They get into it's like Bitcoin and all these other things that you sit there and go, well, how do you know about that? Like, and don't do that. Don't do this.
Well, so when it comes to like investing, I usually just keep to the stocks and everything like that. Stock markets are not too hard to learn in terms of, and sometimes you can not predict, but like, find certain ways around it. And it's ultimately trying, just.
But this is
if it's a digital stock, I wouldn't do it. But back in the day, I used to do it.
But that's a perfect example.
Which is why I switched to physical.
Like not knowing exactly what your kids are doing when they're on, YouTube, or when they're, surfing the web or whatever. Like I would not have thought that would be something that Nathaniel would be in. But lo and behold, COVID caused him to be entertained by YouTube and other things. So. Yeah. Again, that comes with, the do's and the don'ts and what you don't expect. But for us, him turning 21 was like heartfelt for me, because it's a realization that he's not a child, and how much should I treat him
or baby
baby him and not.
And really, you shouldn't baby your kids till when they're 21, because they turned into, you don't if I ever had kids, I wouldn't baby them. Like, I mean, to the age of like 20 or 30. To be honest, that type of behavior, in my opinion, creates people that don't want to spread out. Really, what creates the want to spread out is struggle and life, decisions that change. When you brace for everything, I think when people brace too much, they just stay in that brace and they don't want to leave. So babying them too much, even to like an older age, is not exactly a good thing and can be a lot of times counteractive to what the parent originally wants.
Yes. So Nathaniel is driving now.
Yes.
He had gotten his permit in high school. He went to driver's ed, and
The reason why I couldn't take it was because of like physically wise when my back bad. So it's like
right after
throughout that course I couldn't do it, and then over time I had to relearn how to walk and everything like that. So it was really getting the motor nerves, to go correctly, so I don't like floor it or just break randomly. Because a lot of the times I had to relearn to walk essentially, and it's weird when you say that when you relearn to walk, because it's like you're regaining nerves and senses that you essentially just like. It's weird. It's fuzzy feeling because you have to relearn, and it's weird.
So yes, he just decided one day I'm just gonna and go take the test, and he passed.
I decided just not to wait because, like, to be honest, it was taking a lot longer. I mean, doing the normal routes and just waiting, and I was just like, if I can do it now, I just do it now. I don't even need to like. I asked, but like I made sure that I was in the car. You know what I mean? Like farther away just to ask, because it's the fear of asking is always.
But
something.
it took on the primary side of when he started to take driver's ed to work with Nathaniel. Build my own confidence because I've had two older daughters that I've had to teach to drive, and I'm telling about needing a glass of wine and taking some aspirin and blood pressure medicine to be in the car with them. And so with Nathaniel, I wasn't really sure how that was going to play out, but we did the practice of going up and down the driveway, giving him that practice of backing up and getting in, and then eventually.
It's not hard, to be honest with you. I mean, at first I thought it was like nervous at times, but like you get it over time.
Right, and then we ventured out into the streets eventually because they do have to have driving experience, but to feel confident that he wasn't gonna get anxiety about something. So I think I'm the backseat driver, so of course, I'm always going like, get behind the line, and he's looking at me like,
She's very much like grandma, because a lot of times it can be very contradictory, because like I'm trying to focus on the road, and sometimes when given orders or commands, you just sort of freeze. So it's better to just leave the person to drive and then backseat drive, because in the end it could cause a crash or an accident.
Yeah, now they put me all the way in the back.
Yes.
So I can't see when he's
very much so, because it's a lot more fearful when she's there.
Well, I always say do it the right way when you're going to go take the test and stuff, and then when you're a driver, then be defensive and make sure that you're like taking care of things. So yes, he's driving, and now I give him my grocery list and I send him to the store so he can go and get the groceries and stuff. But I'll still get 10 phone calls in the meantime, like, is this the right brand? But I'm okay with that because I know he's at least trying. So that's another aspect of it. So in January he'll be 22, but I think that plateau of turning 21 really was like, oh my gosh, like he's will always be my baby in my heart, but physically he's an adult.
Right.
And so even with that transition, we were still able to get the pediatricians for his psychiatry and therapy and everything else. But once he turned 21, Nathaniel had to actually go to an adult section. So that in itself was for him,
Was it coming?
A bit scary because he had to tell the story over, and he wanted to make sure that he was going to understand, like, if there was any new changes and stuff, obviously. But he's doing well with that now. He can't really like set up his own doctor's appointments, but he can go to them, and kind of like get another appointment. So he got, he goes to the eye doctor. He goes to, I can send him like the eye doctor. I'll send him by himself because I know it's just very routine. And if there was anything, they call me right away because I might be working. But if it's something like the neurosurgeon or something that is related to more physical aspects, then I attend that. Even with the psychiatrist, um, he can set his own appointment with them. Basically, they do give him his privacy, so they want him to be able to not be, with me so much. But if Nathaniel has, concerns, and he'll tell me, and then I'll reset another appointment, and then get him to, like his medications and stuff. When they want to take him off something, and I'm like, look, everything he's on is exactly what he needs. So let's not change that up too much. So
See that comment. Sounds like you have given him the tools needed for success. Trust him to make the correct decisions when the time comes. Yes, it can be very scary, but trust you have given him proper tools. Yes, 100%.
I think I have, but it's not easy because it's always trying, and not two children or a child are alike. So you have to know your child. You have to figure out, are they going to understand? If they're not going to understand, and still give them tools to help them through some of these things. Now, some kids are not always able to do that, and so I encourage you to just always advocate for them in the right way, so that they see you, and it encourages them, and they'll be able to talk to you a little bit more. And if they can, they'll verbalize it, or do it in another way. But I was lucky with Nathaniel, to be able to talk more with him. But that is only because Nathaniel is my, third child. I had him at a early, later in life, 40s. So I didn't have other small kids. So I was able to sit with him a lot more. And even when I got the diagnosis, just accept it. I didn't care what the reasons were. I didn't care, you know, whatever they were telling me, could have caused it. At this point, that wasn't even an issue. Just how can I help him? There's no cure for it. I don't care what anybody, tries to say that there's no cure for it. So you might as well accept it and work with your child so that they understand that you um, are just wonderful on your own. You don't need to change, or work with quirks. And even for Nathaniel, he does have some friends that have stuck by him,
Tooth and
through
nail.
this.
Tooth and nail.
Yes, through a lot of his things, and they love him for him. They never say, "Oh, Nathaniel, don't say that," or "Don't act like that." And that's what I told him. Even if you have one friend, and that one friend treats you with respect, accepts you for who you are, then that's all you need. Then stay with one friend. Like, you don't have to be a people pleaser, which is very difficult for them because they want to be liked, and they want to be part of a group. But you as a parent can see like what friends they're hanging out with, or kind of associating with, even when they're playing their games and you hear all this talking in the background. There are times where I have to tell Nathaniel, what's going on, even with language. He has family members and friends who swear a lot.
That's fine though.
And I tell him,
this is normal life.
So. Right, but I don't like it. I don't like the swearing. And so I have to tell them, I don't like all that kind of talking. And to me, it's just very disrespectful.
For me, though, language is a lot more different. I mean, I personally believe in, like, the First Amendment and everything like that. You can say what you want as long as you're not threatening anyone. That's completely fine.
But we're talking about something different. So
right.
Swearing is, you're right, is the First Amendment. So see, here's what I'm saying. My son loves to not contradict me, but he will go into detail about the First Amendment and all these things.
It's not that. It's just I mean, I really don't. For me, personality-wise, I don't take offense to whatever people say. I mean, every person's life is different. Every person has their own life experiences. So I don't judge other people based off of what they say or do. I judge off of their actions and in the moment what their decision making is. And if it's compromised, maybe I don't stick with them. If it is fine, I stick with them. I only stay with competent people, and I only, you only know as much as you only stick with the people that are not gonna stab you in the back. You know what I mean? So, like, in terms of like knowing people, like, I mean, it can be hard sometimes. People sometimes, people like I a lot of times put a lot of trust in people. But it's knowing when to stop that trust or to focus that trust onto something else.
So that we already discussed, that the aspect of not understanding the social abilities or the socializing about accepting like foul language and stuff. Like if you are in a home that don't swear, and then all of a sudden you hear the swear word, and you're going, "Whoa, okay, if I hear it, that was that," and then you hear it again, and you're like, "Wait a minute, we don't speak that way," So where are
I
you
mean, it's
picking
not
this up?
for me in terms of like language. I mean, as long as it's not derogatory or like I mean, threatening against someone. I mean, in the situation, you could swear. I mean, like it's dependent really on like how it's used and like the context in it and what it's used for, because language is like a lot of times like it's very, like I said, language, it's very fluent and everything like that. So like it's dependent on the conversation people are having. And if it's, I mean, I can understand why people swear and I can understand why people don't swear. It's just I don't force that on other people or like try to create a sort of barrier, because language shouldn't have a barrier in
But
terms of like scale.
so a day in my life with Nathaniel would be a topic that would be just
Very philosophical and very like moral gray.
really, it's more like an opinion, right? Like I don't believe in swearing, and he, can say a couple of words and he's okay with it. So we'll argue about that. So we'll agree to disagree. But again, because he doesn't understand, like I keep telling him, like he's not old enough to understand like life yet. Like he's just starting out. So you take it for someone who's in their 60s and you go, back in the day, respect, and we didn't do these things and stuff. And
True,
he's
which is why at a young age it was instilled on me at a very young age. I always respect my elders, even up till now. But like in terms of like scale of like life decisions, I mean I have everything already planned out of what I'm gonna do or try to do. I mean, yeah, everyone has their life buckets and everything like that, and everybody is different. But I don't know, when it comes down to, I guess, like the plans I make. I mean, I've already made most of the plans that I already wanted to make. I mean, I've been following this like one strict, well, not strict guide, very loose guide, but like as long as every part of that checklist in that guide is checked off, I'm fine. So in terms of like that, I mean, I really don't have like personal opinions on different people. I'm always open to everyone, as long as it's not gonna harm me or harm anyone else in the end. I mean, it's like it's fine. You know what I mean? So in terms of like personality wise, it doesn't matter to me.
so just some of what it's like for Nathaniel, having to kind of make his own decisions. I'm here to help him do those. But sometimes he does have to make, some challenging decisions. Like, we're working on going to college and he wants to.
One of the things I wanted to do in college, especially, was like mechanical engineering and everything like that, because one of the fears that I have, especially with spinal stenosis, is that it's a very long disease. And when I was first diagnosed with it, my viewpoints a lot of the times changed, because like we always think that we're, I mean, in some way or form immortal. Like we don't think that like the next day would be our last, or like if choking on this like grapes, or just like eating things in general. I mean, you could easily just choke on a chicken bone and suffocate to death. You know what I mean? So when my spinal stenosis was originally diagnosed, and like I realized that my life is going to be a lot different. It's going to be heavily impacted by this. Every day is most likely going to be some form of pain or some form of like discomfort, and to mitigate that, I always understood it. And I also began to learn too as well, because like technology is advancing and everything like that. So one of the things, when I go to college, I'm specifically going to try to go to the engineering courses in marine and everything like that. So um I want to try to, because I've seen these online, like these EEG monitors and everything like that, because a lot of the like technology is being paved by AI and everything like that. And a lot of like the controls that we have, or I believe, are going to become obsolete between the 5 and 10 years. So a lot of interfaces that we are now creating, like chips, like I'm not talking like chips in the head or something like that, but like an interface that can interact with a person better than clicking a button or moving something, especially for people that are already impaired. That could basically help. And I'm seeing a lot of these things on the news, like people getting like this guy got a chip in his head, and the first thing he did with it was play video games. Now people think that's bad, but that's a good thing because in the long run they need to learn the mental maps from transmitting from fingers to actually like, you know, not, it's not controlling it with your mind because it's basically the AI trying to figure out what you're trying to make it do. And the technology is very, you know, new right now, but it is growing very fast. And one of these monitors usually, you know, they cost like 800. Like it was like I think it was I forgot what it was specifically called, the model that I specifically wanted, but like,
So this is a perfect example of your child not understanding, like
I
take a
mean, it's
break
not
off
that
its.
I'm not understanding. It's just I know that it's going to take a good like 5 to 10 years to get the
No, I'm
technology
saying
down, and then also
when
the
too much.
manufacturing for it.
I'm saying when too much information is too much.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that, you know, information
I
wise, it's
I
good.
get it, but again, this is Nathaniel. This is his little quirks.
Yeah,
Would I accept him for who he is? Absolutely. But
I have a
this,
lot of wants in the world, and I have to realize that, you know, I might not be able to, you know, get those things like, you know, because, you know, I can see that it's, you know, advanced technology or something like that, like controlling things in your mind. I mean, I see it all the time on the news and everything like that, and like building schematics for it. I mean, I always wanted to try to build it because when I was in engineering, you know, I built like these little claw machine robots and everything like that. But I never understood it because I never knew how to code it. I could build the framework, but just coding it, you know. And I always told, like, you know, I mean, at a young age, I mean, I might not be able to build it. I mean, so just having a logistic way of knowing that you can't do it is something I guess that's fine to know.
so I know it's almost getting close to our time, and you know, I want to thank Nathaniel for coming on with me to kind of give everybody a little journey in his life after 18, and the things that we look forward to after 21 now, because he's 21 and will be 22. And I just thought, you know, there may be some similarities for some parents who have a high functioning child who also has some social issues, but academic wise, you know, can pursue a lot of things.
Right.
So,
So another thing, definitely if you guys are interested in what I do, I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook, I even try to get my YouTube up and running. It's Hammered Treasure and everything. So specifically the goals that I'm trying to do, I mean, like some people might not, you know, I do collecting and everything like that. But another thing is building technology to try to do what I'm trying to do. Guidelines will restrict me, but I will still try to create that type. I mean, I have, you know, plans for future stuff. So like definitely like in the collection business and definitely in the technology stuff.
so thank you all for listening, for allowing us to, you know, come in and give you an hour of some chatty stuff, maybe some knowledgeable things, but just to get to know my son. So I thank you all. I love this group, and I love it, you know, that we had some interaction. So thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. So then we just click the